path to achieving our goals, unfortunately, is not that beautiful, straight, linear line like we have been led to believe. Although it is often way more squiggly than we would like, there is magic and power in sticking it out. Let's figure out how to do that together in this Doodle-to-Doing. Welcome everyone to Doodle-to-Doing. I'm your host, Karen Light, artist and creative coach at How Doodle, where I support passionate hard workers in sparking their creativity to enjoy the ride of getting better results. In many ways, we've been fed the message that achieving our goals is a linear process. You define the goal, you create the steps, and get there just like walking up a staircase. When this isn't working out, we tend to think we are messing up. But it's not that we're wrong, it's that the concept is wrong. The truth is that we make a goal and go on a long, winding road with dead ends, U-turns, and lots of construction. The truth is we're mostly on an unknown path that's being created as we go. At times, it can make us just want to find a safe place to pull over and be okay with whatever is there. But what magic might await us if we can stick it out, keep paving new roads, and keep believing that what we are after can be achieved. That's the story of my guest today, Andy Swindler, a man of many hats, including co-founder of FeelReal and head of partnerships at Translator, wants to share with us. Let's doodle our way through the hardest of times. Welcome, Andy, and welcome, doodlers. Thanks for being with me today. Yay! This is the spirit of a doodle. This is what doodling is all about and what we really want to embrace today during this doodle shop, workshop, doodle cast, all the things that it is. So I muted you all, but feel free to come off of mute because what I want you to do is just shout out the one that's jumping out to you on this list of things.
Let's see what happens.
Be colorful.
Enjoy the process.
Play but be silly.
Feel the flow.
Yeah. All
Let
right.
go.
Oh, the last one.
Let go.
Let go. Yes. I'm going to have fun as mine today. So what I encourage you to do right now is whatever one jumped out to you, go ahead and write it down for yourself at the top of whatever you're going to doodle on. That's going to be your intention for our time together. So if ever you're thinking like, oh, I don't know how to do this doodle thing, you can kind of return to your intention. Or if ever anything is feeling a little too heavy, just return to the doodle thing. We're here to play with these thoughts, even if they're hard or challenging. We still want to embrace in a spirit of play and doodle with what we're talking about today. Let's get warmed up then, shall we? What I'd like for you all to do is draw any kind of squiggle that you want to on your piece of paper. Any kind of little squiggly line. And as you draw that squiggle, start thinking about one thing that you're curious about today. Maybe it's why you showed up. What's one little curiosity that you have? It could be big or small, serious or silly. But as you finish your squiggle, write that question down for yourself. So let's get to know each other just a little bit. I would love for you guys to introduce yourself, saying your name, wherever you're zooming in from. And you can share your squiggle so we can see that we all have doodling skills, because if you squiggled, you're a doodler, you're in, you're golden for this workshop, all right? And if you want to, just share a little bit about your question or curiosity. So I'm Karen, I'm zooming in from Cincinnati, Ohio. Here is my squiggle. Got a blue squiggle today. And you know, I'm just always so curious about how we manage to keep showing up for the call, for the thing that pulls at us, even when it's really, really tough, and how we can keep ourselves going through those tough moments. So I'm really excited about this topic.
So my name is Vanessa Calcanoteo. I'm zooming in from Yucatan, Mexico. And this is my squiggle. I don't know if you can see.
Yeah.
So the question that I wrote down, I'm seeing it backwards, so I'm going to read it to you, is how to be light, in a light mood during hardship. Because I know that was kind of the topic of today, was hardships, and I was starting to write happy, and I thought, well, you can't really be happy during hardships, but at least being light in the events that are happening. That's kind of something that made me curious on how the process be. So that's what I'm trying to do today in the doodling session.
So my name is Tazima Paris, and I am zooming in from Evanston, Illinois. It's the top hat of Chicago, for those who are not familiar with this area. And this is my squiggle. And my question is, well, there's a short question and a longer question. And the short question is, what's next? And then the longer version of that question is, to which project shall I give my primary focus and attention? Because I have a bunch of things that I have going on, and I love all of the things. And sometimes it feels difficult to just choose and focus on one thing. So that's what I'm ready to embrace the process of discovery.
Wonderful. And so relatable to Zima. Sometimes that creates the hardship in and of itself. Which one? I love them all. Can't get them up.
Totally.
All right, I'm Rachel Zargo, and I'm calling out of Chicago, Illinois, actually Oak Park. So if Tazima's in the hat of Chicago, I'm maybe in the shoes, or at least the belt. I don't know.
The jazz hand. It's the jazz hand of Chicago.
I think you're the fanny pack.
Like that. I like that. That's perfect, because mine is to be silly. And my question was how to balance dreaming and doing, which sounds like it might be a bit of a theme.
Okay. I'm Nikki Smith, and I'm calling from Arizona, Buckeye, Arizona, and this is my squiggle. And my question is, I have to read it again, it was so long. How to remain confident and positive when you're on your way to there and it doesn't look like.
It just
I have a lot of, it doesn't look like.
doesn't look like yet.
Hey everybody, this is Sri. I'm zooming in from Dayton. So Karen, I'm north of you.
You're my hat.
For me today, I'll say it, play but be silly is what kind of attracted me today, as Karen was telling us what we will be doing today. And then today, the question you asked, Karen, as to what got me here is I'm just into new learnings, just new insights, new perspectives, and that can be a game changer. So I made more of not of a squiggly, but more of a cloud, and started building it. If you guys can see it, so that's my goal today. Thank you.
I love it.
I'm Chrissy. I'm also in Chicago. I don't know, I'm like Lincoln Park, so the belly button, maybe a little further up, chest area of Chicago.
I'm redrawing the map of Chicago after this conversation. That's what I'll be doodling.
And here's my wiggle. It's very light. I went and grabbed my colored pencils after my thing was be colorful. So, and my question was, will this help me flow, and what will help me flow?
I'm Laura, and I am zooming in from Ithaca, New York, right in the middle of the state, where we're having rare sunshine right now. And there's my squiggle down there at the bottom. And my question is, how can reinvention help with hard times? Like that, the juxtaposition of those two things is what grabbed me. So that's why I'm here.
I'm Lori Swindler, and this is my husband, Jim. And he can speak for himself. I'm here because my creativity is kind of stuck, and I need to get unstuck. And I'm hoping this will do that. And then, of course, my question is, where do I go from here? How do I keep the flow going? I did find some stuff.
You found something to doodle with. Yay. Wonderful.
Doodle. He's why are you here?
I don't know. It's not picking up on his voice for some reason.
Well, I was visiting him. He lives in a home, and and I got my times mixed up, so I wanted to join. So he's joining too, and he did a doodle. So there we go.
Awesome.
And so I think probably he's looking for ways to what? Breakout.
Mm.
All right, I went with Feel the Flow. Nice big squiggle there. And then my question was, why fret? If I'm in flow, then the whole point is flow, not fret.
I love that question. Yes. Why
Yes,
fret?
I did. Yes, I did write a date on it because I have an entire folder full of doodles from the last several years.
And that makes me so happy. Yay. I'm pleased to give Andy more of an introduction. Andy Swindler's purpose is to seek and reveal truth in the places where it hides most deeply, so we may unify humanity. He envisions a world where every person experiences dignity and agency. As a social entrepreneur, community organizer, coach, writer, speaker, mental health advocate, he works and plays at the intersection of circles, embodiment, healing, purpose, culture, and social justice. Andy leads partnerships at Translator Incorporated to scale empathy through AI-guided DEI dialogues and anonymous sharing. He co-founded FeelReal, a collaborative ecosystem of space holders who connect deeply in authentic community to shift the dominant culture from fear to love. Andy is immersed in mutual aid, houseless, and restorative justice communities around Chicago. He writes and speaks about social justice, authentic expression, and co-authored the book, You Empath You. Woo, that's an awesome introduction. He's also my friend, so I'm excited to have him with us and have this conversation around so many things that we've talked about, but focused in this way, which is exciting. So welcome, Andy. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
Exciting.
absolutely. So, first things first, the description of this Doodlecast alludes to a long period of being in the unknown. So can you share some of that story here and what was happening in your life? And what was that like for you?
Yeah, happy to. I do feel compelled to let everybody know that this is a Karen Light original behind me, though. You were wondering.
That's true. He happily gave it a house for me when I started traveling, and then it stayed because it's actually so much nicer than sitting in a closet somewhere in my place.
If you ever run out of anything to say in a conversation, we'll just say, well, what does that mean to you? And I think it relates to today's theme. So my story, this part of it anyway, goes back to my first business. It was a digital marketing agency called Aztec, A-S-T-E-K, like Andy Swindler Technology. It was based in Chicago. I started it when I was 25, ran it for 14 years. At our peak in 2013, we had 13 amazing full-time employees, a fun office downtown Chicago, about $1 million in revenue. Our clients were true partners and champions. We built software that empowered people to share their stories. We had fun, we had success. What could possibly go wrong? Well, we went off a cliff. We had grown too quickly. We didn't have the revenue we needed to pay the bills. And I carried constant anxiety about making payroll for years. I overextended benefits that we couldn't afford because I thought it was the right thing to do. And to sort of try to cope with all of this, I kept numbing myself, and my romantic relationship at the time was deteriorating before my eyes. And I didn't have a lot of motivation to actually, fix that. And then on top of all that, I ended up with hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt, and I was on a first name basis with agents from multiple federal agencies. Sounds fun. But that was not even the worst part. I really cared about the people I hired. Many of them were friends, and I wasn't direct enough with them. I resorted to fear and trying to sell off parts of the company rather than just roll up our sleeves and use our imaginations to fix this and build something even better. I told myself countless stories about other people and what they were thinking because I hadn't yet learned any of the powerful healing techniques I now embody. I kept leaping into other side projects that were distracting me from honoring the agreements I'd made. It was a mess. I was a mess. That romantic relationship ended. She moved out, which was painful and disruptive, yet also freeing in some ways. And I really just watched it all happen. as though I had nothing to say or do. In 2014, I became very engaged in anti-racism after Michael Brown was shot and killed by police in Ferguson, Missouri, which was fairly near where I grew up. And this really initiated, I think, a lifelong journey to learn about my own identities and privileges as a straight white man in America, which could be a whole, session unto its own. And this really required tools to navigate a massive deconstruction of my worldview. So just to turn, even a bigger frame upside down and inside out. 2 years later, in 2015, another relationship ended, and I finally looked in the mirror to see that I was the constant thread through all of my troubles. Luckily, I knew several healers and people in the consciousness space. However, I started with something even more basic, with some advice from my brother, who was a rock through all of this, as well as the rest of my family, some of whom are here. And, this was even though his now wife actually worked for me during the company imploding. So I started with my body. I reset my nutrition. I joined a kickboxing gym and won a 10-week challenge. I studied mindfulness. I joined a team doing an intensive book research project around culture and brand. And I personally interviewed more than 200 companies. So in the last year, I ended up downsizing my company to just myself and 3 core people. We actually had a nice final year. We had a couple of fun, good-sized web design projects, and I eventually sold what was left of it to a friend I met at the gym. And yet, I still didn't feel settled. I recently read a book called Sand Talk by an Aboriginal man named Tyson Yunkaporta. Highly recommend. And I'm going to leave this thought, I think, for our doodle. So in an effort to translate Indigenous wisdom into language and concepts we might understand, he talks about how strange it is even to consider the idea that a story is linear with a clear beginning, middle, and end. In his culture, that's just not how life works. We might say life is a squiggle.
Absolutely. Wow. Thank you for, vulnerably sharing that. I think it is so healing to many of us just to understand and heal from other people's stories, like hear ourselves in those stories. And even though like your details might be unique to you, we've all can identify with some of those feelings, the anxiety of some responsibility like weighing on us, trying to do the right thing, but being completely confused at what that might be. Just fearing the worst and also like trying to avoid it maybe sometimes to escape it. We've all, or the fear of failure, that really also resonated for me in that story that you just shared. So all of you out there doodling right now, I want you to think about one struggle that maybe you're going through. What feeling is coming up for you around that struggle? What's the predominant feeling that you have? And I'm going to give you 1 minute just to doodle out that feeling, whatever comes up for you as you think about that feeling in the hard place. Let it go. It could be abstract. It could turn out to be something that you recognized. No worries. Just let it go for 1 minute. Capture that feeling in a doodle. After, sharing that story, a lot of that happened before I actually knew you. We've known each other for a number of years now, 4 years-ish, I think. And over the last 4 years, I've seen this transformation happen very slowly to where you are now. Like you've had a lot of breakthroughs and new things happening and exciting things happening. What do you think helped you to stick it out to get to this place that you always wanted to be possible instead of just settling for wherever it was and sort of letting go of some of those bigger aspirations? What kept you going, Andy?
Well, I first started by leaning into the communities of support that I have, which are really plentiful. I was starting with my family and then extending from there. I learned to ask for what I needed and be vulnerable. That's, I think, a lifelong mission to get better at that. I got curious. One of the things I did was I connected with other entrepreneurs, which I really hadn't done while I was building that business, and learning about their experiences. And guess what I realized? I was not alone. This is actually a very difficult path for many. I found a path to spirituality, not through organized religion necessarily, but through connecting with what people in my coaching community call a trusted source, which is like a higher source of guidance. And I learned this in connection while being trained to be a true purpose coach. And I also did that. I was basically learning to do that for myself and also training to be a coach. So sort of that, those who don't do teach sort of thing, or if you don't know something till you teach it. I think that's what I'm trying to say. And this methodology really fits with my worldview, where we each have dignity and agency. And part of that agency is, I think, the right to name our own gods, so to speak, our own source of wisdom. And I know, Karen, we're both involved with the Heart of Business community, which is based on a Sufi mysticism. So that was really important along the way, including where we met, which was like an intense weekend workshop around emotional intelligence, as well as Mankind Project. And I could list probably a number of other organizations and kind of groups that I connected with. And, I know that it's a privilege to have this many opportunities and this many networks. But even with that, I didn't necessarily tap them. I didn't necessarily just stop to look around and see what was there. And, this is all about building more empathy and equity in the world. So I had to do that with myself, right? I had to kind of give myself a break and see what was going on with me. And I realized that not everybody has access to the opportunities. And that's a big part of sort of how I'm, now that I've gotten back on my feet, sort of how I see the world and sort of my work in the world. So I embraced purpose coaching and consulting as a new path. I realized that this considerable experience with despair would inform everything that I would do through that work. And this is actually pretty common with deeper purpose work, I think, is you can look back and find a thread that weaves through everything. And if you're doing some kind of intuitive work, you might be able to start forecasting where that thread can lead you. As Karen mentioned, in 2019, that led me to launching a startup called FeelReal with some other folks. This was a manifestation of a dream, a vision in a dream I saw in 2007. And this was really well timed right before the pandemic. So we ended up building a community of space holders who hosted 300 plus gatherings during the pandemic, including mini doodle shops. That's where Karen and I really got to know each other really well. And this was rewarding in many ways. And I also eventually realized that I was using startup life, as well as conscious business and activism, as ways to justify burning myself out and neglecting my health. So I'm still working on that balance. I find that sneaks up all the time. So FeelReal carries on and continues to reinvent itself. I really celebrate that we had a collaborative culture where we really understood each other and where we were. And this whole idea of coming and going as we are and as we need to in any moment. And that I don't see that, functioning in a lot of groups or communities necessarily. And a lot of that has to do with we're very deliberate about building like a collaborative model that wasn't based on hierarchies. And that's really actually incredibly challenging. Most of us are deeply, deeply trained and kind of attached to the hierarchies that we know. So all of this led to my current focus, which is a sister startup called Translator. It also had a mission to scale empathy. It's where I now lead the sales team. It's really exciting combination of all the things that I love. And it's pulling from absolutely every corner of that entire journey, right? So I feel like I found this, I feel like a fun challenge is just enough challenge, where it doesn't feel overwhelming, where it feels like, I got this. And it's just every single day I'm realizing some lesson I learned along the story I told you is playing out in real life. And it's kind of an intrapreneur role. So even within this environment, I'm going to continue to find ways to reinvent myself and just stay. I mean, that's certainly true of a startup, but I feel like that's in so many environments now, what communities or companies or jobs or whatever, just this idea of staying on our feet, being able to dance and being able to adapt.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
last thing I'll say is just that this is a really huge moment for I would say my healing journey around business in particular is I just onboarded two new team members last week, and then here to tell this story. So thanks, Karen.
Yay. Oh, well, we celebrate with you. Here's so many good themes through that, like this ability to keep pivoting and being open to what's coming at you, right? Like, I don't know, I feel like sometimes I struggle with this too, where we have an idea and we get really attached to it. And in our attachment, we don't see all the other opportunities that might be there. And I just hear about like gradually you letting things sort of come into your world that you could pivot from and learn from and grow from. The other thing that really stuck out about what you said was not only, looking up and saying, oh, wait, I am connected to all these communities. I do have these opportunities around me. Let me reach out, let me ask for help, but also that you started even communities within this time. And I think that's really beautiful. I once had a mentor tell me, if there's something you really want if there's something you really want, go create it. Instead of just being sad you don't have it. As soon as you start creating it, you have it. And you're not at anybody else's mercy. And suddenly you're much more empowered. So that must have felt pretty amazing to start your own community in the midst of everything that was going on. Yeah, I really love that. So to continue with our doodling, everybody, I want you to look at that first doodle that you did and pretend now that it's some kind of little character. If you want to give it a little face or something, you're welcome to do that. You don't have to, but it's fun to try. If you want to bring a little levity into that feeling, that might not be so much fun. And as you create it into a little character, I want you to ask, what do I already have that I can give this character to help it transform? What's going on in my life? If I just look around a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right, what's something that starts coming into focus that I can bring into this situation and help this little character out? So I'm going to give you a minute just to think about it, doodle it out, see what comes up for you. All right, Andy. What I would love for you to share with us, who may all be in the middle of some kind of struggle, what are some practical things that you learned, some ideas that you have that others might be able to start thinking about and implementing today?
Yeah. Well, for me, it was about finding a way to hack into some kind of health improvement. And, this can feel like the hardest and the most far away thing, especially if you're really in the depths of some kind of pain and torment. But you can start small. Maybe it's a walk around the block. If that's not up for you, maybe it's some simple stretches in the morning. And I think the key there is just doing it regularly. Just try again the next day. Even with something like my meditation practice, even now, sometimes there will be a few days where I just don't do it. And I try not to beat myself up, if that doesn't happen, just, well, here I am today, I'm going to do it today. And then a huge part, I kind of alluded to this, but was just try to understand how much you are contributing to the story, or maybe adding things to the story. So this can help you become very clear about which parts are you and which parts are external. I found this to be essential in my path to healing and mental stabilization. because ultimately, I don't think we can control all that much of what happens outside of ourselves, but we can have a profound influence on our own mental condition. Find healing. There's just, I think now more than ever, thankfully, I think it's being destigmatized to talk about a lot of these things. I think there are more resources. It's part of what, some of my networks are working on building. It might look like therapy. It might look like circles, best friends, psychedelics, support groups. There's just numerous resources and programs out there. And some won't fit and may even feel like a setback. So I would just say, keep going, try something different. I truly believe that we suffer because most of us have lost a sense of community. So seek one out, and don't settle for a community that requires you to adhere to strict philosophies that aren't aligned with your free authentic expression or your values. So take some chances, try it on. If it doesn't work, and like Karen was saying, or consider building a new one if that's your speed. And again, I guarantee you're not alone. It's a big thing that I learned. And then the last one I'll say is find your superpower. For me, this was truly embracing that I'm an empath. I've always known that I was sensitive, but for much of my life, I didn't know how to focus this. So instead, I turned to numbing agents and dissociation to make the world go away sometimes. Well, guess what? The world was always still there, and that's a good thing. The world's pretty groovy in some ways. So I dug deep. I found a coach and other resources specifically around being an empath. And that eventually led to realizing how powerful this was for facilitation and leadership, to feel the energy of the room and the people in it. And as Karen mentioned, it even led me to write the foreword to a collection of essays from other empaths called You Empath You. So it might not always be obvious how your superpower is a superpower and how it fits in with society.
That's so true. Sometimes I feel like our superpowers almost feel like burdens at first, or something that's really heavy and hard. But that transforming it into a superpower is incredibly empowering if you can recognize it. Can I ask you one more question, improvising on this? What kind of, I feel like a lot of people are looking for their superpower, and I just have to ask this question, like, how did you suddenly recognize, or maybe not suddenly, maybe over time, recognize that your empathy, being an empath, let me say, was your superpower?
Well, I met a mentor along the way who I'll name Stephanie Redfeather, who this was like her body of work. It's like her life's work. Well, part of her life's work anyway, to help empaths realize that we are not alone, and that these feelings, this feeling out of sorts or feeling overwhelmed by energy, that there's a path through that, right? There's a very specific, she wrote a book on it, a whole coaching program. And we had met through other consciousness work, some of those, coaching and consciousness programs that I had mentioned. So I think I really owe her a lot of credit there. There was another friend, David Savage, along the way, who's a very gifted empath. So I think I met a couple of empaths, in particular, Stephanie, who like had an entire framework. I mean, I think she noticed it like as part of her superpower in her life's work, right? To say, guess what? You might be an empath. And that's even part of her framework is like, there's like a checklist of, oh, do you fit some of these qualities? And I was like, oh, absolutely. Yes. Oh my God. Yes. That's all very, very familiar. So for me, I fell into it. You could call that luck. We could call that intuition. Somehow that I found that path. And the credit I will give myself is I listened and I leaned into it.
I was going to say, I would also call it some, pretty dedicated persistence and determination on your end to figure that out. So love it. So our last quick doodle is, I want you to consider the things that Andy just shared, his ideas, his practical tips, and doodle one out that you don't want to forget. What do you want to take away from that last bit that Andy shared? And now I just want you to just have a look at these doodles that you've been creating so far today. Just look at them with a little curiosity. We're not trying to figure anything out. Just enjoy them. Just notice what you notice. Maybe see if you see anything new in them. Enjoy looking at them. Feel the playful spirit in which they're hopefully created and that we can still bring to them. And then I'm going to invite you to go ahead and get comfortable for a second. Get everything out of your hands. Get relaxed in your chair. If you need to move a little bit to shake it out, we're going to close our eyes and go on a little imagination meditation to get ready for our longer doodle and discussion. And just start by connecting with your breath. Just taking a second to enjoy breathing in and breathing out. Feel yourself being filled up. And feel yourself letting go of anything that doesn't need to be here in this moment. As we close our eyes, we tell our brain that it's time to integrate. It doesn't have to take in any more information. It can just integrate and do a lot of work for you right now. It saw your doodles. It knows what you're struggling with. It feels your curiosity, and it's already getting to work for you. So just rest, knowing that things are happening. And I want you to bring your question back into your mind. Really stimulate that curiosity for a second. And as you think about that question related to what we've been talking about today, I want you to imagine that there's a big blank screen right in the middle of your imagination. And as you stare at it, a light flicks on and you start seeing an image appear there. Don't judge what image pops up. Just let whatever image pop up right now. And this image becomes a moving image, a movie. Start watching it play out. What's happening? What do you notice? Who's there? Where is it? What are the feelings? In just a second, I'm going to have you blink your eyes open to start doodling. But your doodle is just a continuation of this movie that got started. You're going to follow this doodle for 5 minutes, starting with wherever you are when you open your eyes, however you want to capture that. And just be curious, letting it take you wherever it wants to go. If you feel stuck, you can just squiggle away. Squiggles are great. They'll still do amazing things for you. But just be curious and playful. Remember your intention. And just doodle for 5 minutes, trusting that whatever appears on your paper is exactly what you need. So when you feel ready, you can blink your eyes open, start doodling, and start following it for the next 5 minutes, being curious where it will lead you. So you want us to say what we see?
Yes, I'd like to know what, if this were my doodle, what would you think?
All right, if this were our doodle, what do we see in it? Just take yourself off mute. As somebody who's commenting, this isn't like an art critique. This is just like, oh, I noticed this. You use these colors. This makes me feel like this. This looks like this to me. All of those things are okay. We're not trying to guess what it is. We're just saying what we see.
I'm seeing like a person holding something, like holding a visual, holding a piece of art, like, but they're holding something. And they're happy about holding it.
I see several choices or options in this space, and also it seems like there's assistance or magical something around, kind of in these 4 little wingling situations up here on the blues. And there looks like there's some structure to what's happening, but also a lot of open space. That's what I'm seeing.
For me, I'm putting myself in Vanessa's shoes, and so it's me holding this box where I'm trying to fit myself in, but actually I started to realize that I'm much more bigger than the box, and my horizon started expanding. That's what I see. Thank you.
I'm going to ask you at this point, Vanessa, because we have a lot of people and I want to make sure lots of folks can share. What's resonating for you? What's coming up for you as people share?
Well, all of it really. But my question had to do about how to be light in terms of hardship. And I'm a healer. I'm an alchemist. So what you said about the magical thingies around, it's absolutely true. I mean, I tried to put in birds, but I realized some of them had feet, and I said, well, birds don't have feet. So there's something a little magical going on here. That's kind of my job, is to transform people's life, to give them the tools so that they can transform them themselves. And I think, as Sri said, she's the one in the middle of the box. So it's really about transforming myself first. And these little 4 things, I didn't really know what I was writing. I just kind of started doodling without really putting thought in it. And after I look into it, it's more like, it's like you change the channel, on TV, there's something you don't like. If there's some thoughts you don't like, or there's some situations you don't like, you just kind of change the channel within yourself. And also this thing about the open space, that's something that's very, very valuable to me. And I'm holding also my how do you say that, superpower, Andy? Is to hold the space for other people, to be a soundboard for their emotions and in their life situations. So it works really well with what you're saying about structure. I'm implementing structure in my life, in my business. So it kind of is a more engaging, motivational skill to go more into the structure and the expanding the horizons. So maybe a trip somewhere in the future, even if it's in myself, that's good enough.
I love what you said about like changing the channel. I'm going to take that away from your piece. I think that's really inspiring. If there's anything you all want to take away from her piece, I encourage you to write it down. We all can take something from everybody's work. I'm also loving that your birds have feet. I just think that speaks to flying and being grounded at the same time. It's like beautiful. And I'm also noticing they're slightly different colors, but they're a similar shape, the flowers at your feet in the piece, which I think are really beautiful. Thank you so much.
That's true. Like you say, the grounding with going up in the air, both are similar. They both belong together. You can't do one without the other then.
Beautiful paradox. Thank you. Ooh.
I would love any thoughts.
All right, we get to add our thoughts, everybody.
I can go. As I'm putting myself in Chrissy's shoes and seeing my heart, and I'm in the middle of the heart as it gets expanded, and I feel like the the true self of myself in the form of a diamond, I think, is coming or emerging out of. Thank you, Chrissy.
Chrissy, I'm noticing this sort of glowing spirit in the middle of your heart, and it almost seems to be like a jewel up top, and I'm wondering maybe what that represents for you. Some sort of treasure.
My cat really wants to add to this. I hope that's not too loud. She's really meowing, but I wanted to share. I was trying to be a mute, but she brought a toy to me and it's telling me all about it. I'm really loving the light within and the light without. Like it looks like a light bulb to me without around. See, she agrees. There's a light bulb outside of the heart, and light bulb is one of my favorite symbols. It's even in my logo of my other company. But I just see this like light bulb being lit up by the heart. And I love this little sweet creature in the middle. It's like this little blobby thing. He doesn't have to know exactly what he is. He's fine with that. He's content. Like he's totally fine being a little ambiguous and vague and maybe even being able to form and shape as he needs to. So those were jumping out to me. What's coming up for you, Chrissy?
Well, the way I drew it was like the first two things were this one and the light bulb. And it was like a cloud kind of coming slowly and like covering up the light bulb. And then I was like, no to the cloud. And then it like, there was another light bulb and he was trying to like get up to that light bulb. And I was like, stop, no. Then I was like, maybe I can just like love him and be like, that little guy is like, you know, if I can just like put light around him, then maybe he won't try to like cover the other lights. And that's kind of how it came to that.
Add something to this, Chrissy.
Yeah.
It also attaches to it something that Karen said. I looked at it and I saw a ghost and I said, no, it's not a ghost, it's a slime. And I realized, it made me realize why I like slime so much, because it can be anything. It can be anything you want it to be. It's squishy, it's soft, and it's pliable, and it's fun. So I think it's like part of your personality. It's like you're supple and fun, and then you've got like the jewel on top. So it's kind of more the wisdom and the, you know, something spiritual at the same time. So it's kind of like a wonderful mix of flowy, slimy stuff with glitter and stuff, and then just kind of wisdom on top. That part of you. I don't know if it speaks to you.
I love that. Well, and I love all the different interpretations too. Like the stop sign is like the jewel. I'm like, yes, like. And the little guy is like so cute, but for me originally it was like, you know, kind of a cloud, and it's like, no, it's like making friends with the fear, making friends with the blob, becoming the blob instead of letting it like overtake me. So
I love that. I love that. Embracing your blob. Everybody, I'm taking embracing the blob from that one. Thank you so much, Chrissy.
That's fun.
I'll actually share this if you can all see it. I know the words are in reverse, but
would you like for us to say what we see?
Yes, please.
Awesome.
And see if you can spot the characters somewhere in there.
Oh, we got a little challenge with this one. I love it.
Well, I'm seeing a lot of colors and sort of brightness, and there's a theme in the reminders. It feels of like remembering kind of a childlike space rather than sort of, I guess, adulting. And yeah, I really like the squigglies, and I think I see a little character in the hearts up top. But yeah, it feels like a reminder to an adult for not taking everything so seriously.
Wow, that was beautiful. And thank you for spotting the character. Thank you.
It almost looks like there's another character hiding behind the love. Like it's got like red hair. Like, I don't know if anybody else sees that, but I feel like it's got like red hair, like a little Jim Henson creature is behind that love sign or something. What stands out to me as I look at yours is, you know, all these shapes are really different, you know, and they all got their different sort of edges and lines. Some are more defined than others, but somehow they all fit, you know, and I just, to me, that's sort of how this goes. It's like, okay, like trusting that all these, like, reminds me of what Andy shared. You know, this job he's in now somehow is pulling from all these different areas of his life and are like sort of fitting together. And that perseverance, you know, got him to a place where he's getting to experience that. So that's coming up for me as I look at this. What do you want to
Yeah, I
share
was seeing kind of
about?
like a wildflower bouquet, but of all of those, like what you said.
Ooh,
I see.
wildflower bouquet.
I'd like to name that I just feel really deeply seen in this because like I'm seeing like my story played back. So thank you.
Ah, that's beautiful. We have to share it with Andy.
I'd like to share one thing real quick. Andy, thank you so much for today, because as Karen was taking us through meditation and as I was visualizing an empty screen in my mind, I kept struggling to find what my superpower was, because that was my question, and Karen actually asked that question. So thank you, Karen. And I don't know if you planted the word empathy or maybe it started emerging for me, because I have this sometimes, you know, burdensome feeling that I want to help somebody so badly, you know, and it would be so burdensome that I can't, you know, put it in a constructive way. And I think it is empathy. So I'm gonna explore more on that. So I want to thank you both, and thank you all of you for helping me doodle this today. I haven't doodled in a long time, so I'm feeling super grateful today. So thank you.
Thanks, Ree.
Let's see.
Yes. All right. Do you want us to share what we see?
Sure, why not?
I'm seeing the purple, which is like a color that says like I'm here and I'm confident, and it's almost like a royalty to it. No idea if that's subconscious or if that resonates, Tazima. And the other piece is the projection. That's so interesting. I'm just more curious about that projection and what that looks like.
Well, cool. I had, come on, paper. So the initial thing that showed up for me was specifically this idea of like kind of going through the woods. Like that was the beginning of the visualization. And then there's like this kind of portal thing. And, you know, part of what's happening for me is like, I get visuals about what could come up. And I want what I'm envisioning to be associated with kind of the highest version of who I am. And so I'm pulling in the purple and but also pink because it's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, just allowing what I'm looking for is, as I do my little search, just embracing the divine and what the highest might be, even though it's in the woods and I can't see what's around the corner.
Love it. Can I say a few things about it too?
Sure.
Those purple things that are like rectangles look like magic carpets to me. Like you're kind of like floating into things, like maybe even getting a perspective like up high, but trusting in the magic, like by what you said, the divine maybe. And I love that Rachel said that projection. I didn't see it as a projection at first, but now I can't stop seeing it being projected. It almost looks to me like a crystal ball. And to me, there's a very womanly shape in the crystal ball. It looks very feminine to me. And this wave is also coming up in the background. I see like a lot of feminine sort of juxtaposed by this like square table and more like geometric shapes. So I love the contrast that's also happening in the picture. Those are some things that I'm noticing.
Thanks.
Yeah. All right, y'all. So I want everybody to go ahead and take yourself off mute for a second. Yeah. We're just going to close our eyes and think about one thing, one little phrase that you want to take away from today. And when you have that phrase, I'm just going to be quiet for a few minutes, but when you have that phrase, just say it out loud.
Embrace the blob.
Remember the light.
Unconditional love.
Lean in.
Be silly.
Change the channel.
Embrace the contrast.
Take joy.
And now open your eyes, and from that takeaway, I want you to write down one little tiny action that you can do this week, inspired by our conversation today. What's one little action that's popping up in your mind that you can take? All right. Well, thank you, Andy, especially for being here today and sharing your story of transformation and perseverance and pivoting and sticking it out and, you know, going with these callings that you had to dive deeper, seek further. And I'm just really happy to see you filled with so much joy in what's happened because of that. So really appreciate you being here and sharing with us. Thank you, all of you who joined me live here, for creating with me, for inspiring us, for sharing your vulnerable stories with us through your doodles and inspiring us all with the things that you created and your ideas. I love it. Thank you to everyone who's watching. And until next time, keep sparking that creativity.